Right back live with you tonight, John in Focus. We continue to look at the challenges facing law enforcement tonight. 3 Gauteng police officers have been arrested after they were captured on CCTV footage allegedly robbing a man of his cell phone. The crime took place in Welkom in the Free State. The South African Policing Union spokesperson Lesiba Thobakgale joins us now for more on this case and a number of other such cases involving officers who got caught on the wrong side of the law. Lesiba, good evening. Good to have you, and thank you very much for your time this evening. How does, firstly, we get to a point where police officers are robbing men on the streets of their cell phones? Are these real police officers?
Thank you, Thabo, and good evening to your viewers back at home. There's allegations that have come out which speaks to the very same incident. And we have heard from the management of SAPS saying that there is an investigation that is on related to the very same incident. And I think outrightly it is important for us to state as Sapu that we don't condone any form of criminality, being it by police officers or law enforcement officers, or even by members of the public, because each one of us has to abide by the law. And in this case, we would like to also to appreciate having institutions like IPID, which would really clearly go look into any case or any allegations that are there leveled against police officers. And in this case, we are also aware that IPID is busy investigating such cases. And also, it is important, Gustavo, that we mention that as it stands, those are allegations, and the law should take its course so that investigations could go deeper to really determine the question that you are asking, to say indeed what really has happened in such an incident. And in most cases, one might find themselves being tempted to go and really be being conclusive on such matters. That is why then we are saying that there should be an investigation that is launched, which we know currently it is there. And if anyone is found to be wanting, and if there is a case that one has to answer, and then the law will take its course. But we should also not find ourselves, judging the members or judging whatever circumstances that has happened, more especially based on footages that we have seen circulating on social media platforms.
Yeah. The fact that as a union you would call on IPID to intervene as well in such matters. I mean, IPID would not kick in unless there are police officers who are involved in particular activities for IPID to investigate. And therefore, as a union, I suppose you also suspect that there could be such activity taking place within the police force.
Remember, as it stands now, the current, in terms of the prescripts of the law, if there's any allegations against police officers, IPID is the one who are the clear body that is, in terms of the law, are recognized and are given powers to investigate the police, because the police cannot investigate themselves. There could be biasness and the rest of other issues that may be involved. That is why we are saying that in this case, there's allegations that came out. There's been videos circulating on social media. There has been, allegations against some members. That is why we are saying that IPID has the responsibility to investigate, to really go to the bottom of this issue, to say what really has happened. Because currently it is only what we are seeing, it is only what is being said, but the full investigation into the matter, it is the one that will really determine to say what really has happened in that case. And I think our position as an organization is quite clear that if there's any criminality that is being done by anyone, we don't condone it, because everyone has to abide by the law at all times.
Yeah. So what we are seeing, I mean, with these particular incidents, either would be an involvement of police vehicles or vehicles branded as police vehicles, which is a question of how do these criminals get a hold of these vehicles or the branding that they put on these vehicles, or SAPS branded bulletproof vests, or in other instances we are told that even these things are carried out using the weaponry of the police. How do we get there? Are you surprised that these are instances that are happening using such equipment?
Sometimes criminals, they also take advantage of stealing some of the properties or some of the items that the members are using, the instruments of work that the police are using that identifies that these are the police. It could be blue lights, it could be bulletproofs that gets to be stolen at times. And even the issue of uniform, we've seen that those issues, as we know, we've got a challenge that has to do with the housing of our police officers in South Africa, which also it also encompasses the government workers whom the state is not providing housing. So our members, they find themselves having to work in specific areas which are far from their homes, then they have to rent. And criminals, they use an advantage of such situations where then the issues of uniforms specifically, this is the one that we want to outline. Then if the uniform is on the line, then the uniforms, sometimes they do get to be stolen. And criminals, then they come and then they become the imposters. And it appears as if it is police officers. That is why in all of the cases that have been reported, it's important for clear investigations to be done so that at the end of the day, one could go to the bottom to really check on what is it that really has happened. Who are these people? Are they indeed law enforcement officers, or are these people, are they the imposters? So that at the end of the day, it is a pity, because then if one is posing as a police officer, if they are not, then that is taking the image of the organization and placing it into disrepute. So those are some of circumstances that are found in at times around these cases that have been reported.
I take it you're saying these are allegations, these must be investigated and so on and so forth. But I draw you to the statement by the National Police Commissioner, General Fani Masemula, who has condemned what he calls the behavior of the police members and has also welcomed their arrest. This is what he says: we condemn this behavior and don't condone acts of criminality and corruption within our ranks. So he's already saying this is happening within our ranks. Is this condemnation just mere lip service, or is the police management actively involved in rooting out this corrupt element?
I think from our perspective, Butabo, we can be able to speak, from the union's perspective, not from the management's perspective, because management by law, they have a responsibility to make sure that all criminal elements, if they happen to exist within the South African police services, are rooted out. And from the perspective of the trade union, Sapu, from our Congress, our National Congress that took place 2 years back, we have taken a resolution to say that we need to deal with the issue of corruption. And by dealing with corruption, it also goes along, because it is part of criminal elements, it is part of criminal activities, and then we need to deal with both the corrupter and the corruptee. So we are also, as a union, also taking a responsibility to make sure that in our meetings and every time when we meet our members, we keep on sensitizing them to say they need to ensure that they stay away from criminal activities. We are showing them the dangers thereof, and anything that could happen that could be on the negative side, affecting them as members. So there is a responsibility that we are taking as a union to make sure that we are sending this message and making sure that we are preaching this gospel of corruption, this gospel of members being involved in criminal activities, to desist from that, even those who were even thinking about it, not to even take that route.
This, of course, draws attention to a unit which I believe we're told exists in the SAPS called the Anti-Corruption Unit, that is solely looking at identifying and removing corrupt law enforcement officers within its ranks. How effective is that unit? I mean, we've had previous conversations, for example, with you, where you were calling for a specialized unit to deal with arms, for example. Now you've got one that is dealing particularly with anti-corruption within the ranks of the police. How resourced, how effective is that unit?
In terms of anti-corruption unit, we know they are there, they are established, and they are making some strides there. But it doesn't only have to end with the issue of the unit. There has to be measures that are there in place, because in most cases, what we used to see, if there happen to be any criminal elements inclusive of corruption, which then would be conducted, or it would be committed by lower ranking members. Then we've seen them being, some of them, they get to be taken through Regulation 9, then they get expedited and then they get to be dismissed from the police. But when it comes to the higher ranking officers within the South African Police Services, you'll find that in most cases, there are no, the very same energy that we are seeing that deals with the lower ranking members. We don't see it when there's allegations that are coming against the senior members of the police. So we are saying that the anti-corruption unit, we see their successes, but there is more that needs to be done. And that has to happen from all the ranks of the South African Police Services, from the lowest to the highest, or from the highest to the lowest, in order to make sure that when we are speaking of eradication of corruption, we are speaking of eradication of criminality within the South African Police Services or within the law enforcement sector, that it is done fully, so without leaving any stone unturned. And that will go with them being given full resources, with them making sure that they are able to exercise their powers without any due influence by anyone.
Yeah. What's the degree of hope that you're pinning on the incoming Minister of Police to be able to deal with such issues and iron out, as you put it, this, I don't know whether is it political protection of higher ranking officers from accountability?
Now, we are saying that, yes, we clearly welcome the Minister Senzomgunu to be the Minister of Police. And indeed, before him, he's got a huge responsibility that he has to play, more especially when it comes to these issues that we are talking about, because indeed there is a need to have consistency when we are dealing clearly with issues of corruption throughout. It should not only just be on certain individuals, but when it goes to others, there are no strides that we are seeing. So he's carrying quite a big responsibility, and as a stakeholder in our upcoming engagements as a union, we will also highlight that issue amongst other issues that are pressing within the South African Police Service, like lack of resources, police killings, and even the lack of promotion of our members, because there's no promotion policy, and also touching on the issue of the incorporation of the Public Service Act into the Police Act. So we still have quite a lot that the minister has to give focus to, because indeed there is a lot of things that needs to change within the South African Police Services, not only focusing on corruption, but amongst other issues. That is also an important issue to deal with, to make sure that the South African Police Services can be able, as a law enforcement agency, to enforce the law without having any form of reproach.
Lesiba Thobakgale, as always, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on, speaking on behalf of the South African Policing Union there.